If you've spent the last 40 years blaming Hot Rod for everything that goes wrong in the Transformers the movie, I got some bad news for you. Today, Hot Rod ignores safety regulations, destroys public property, menaces the elderly, and takes a child into a restricted area for absolutely no good reason. And somehow, those are all the right decisions. Hi, I'm Mike Seibert, and this is 40 for 40, Transformers the movie.
You got the time! 2 years in the making. Spectacular widescreen animation with an original story that will shock and surprise you. It's now playing at theaters everywhere. Transformers, the movie. A monster planet destroys everything in its path, while Megatron and Prime fight to the death. Starring Leonard Nimoy and Judd Nelson, with songs by Weird Al Yankovic and Stan Bush. Don't miss it. Transformers, the movie. Rated PG. It's now playing at theaters everywhere.
We spend a lot of time on this podcast talking about tone and tonal whiplash, and this sequence might just either be the biggest culprit or it might be the sterling example of how a scene change and a shift in tone can give the audience a break. Because after all, how else could you follow up the intensity of the shuttle attack? More relentless violence?
It's just like, relentless, in your face.
No, that's the stuff they do in the live action movies. And not to make my friends who enjoy the Michael Bay movies upset, but as I've said before, my problem with those movies is because the violence is such a strong component and is so interwoven into the storytelling, it's my opinion that there's a desensitizing to it, to all the violence. And you kind of find yourself becoming numb to it.
I've become so numb.
Hey, there's peanut butter in those, by the way.
No!
You're not allergic, are you?
I can't feel.
Quick, take these pills.
No!
Oh, shoot. Those are Reese's Pieces.
To failing.
Quick, take this antidote.
No!
Ah, crap. That was peanut oil.
Another mistake.
That's not to say that there isn't some of that here in the Transformers the movie, but it doesn't feel as sustained. Now, a lot of that comes obviously from the runtime. So it is a little bit of apples and oranges comparing Transformers the movie 1986 at 85 minutes and say even Transformers 2007 that's 2 hours and 24 minutes. And the movies only get longer from there. I remember a million years ago when, oh gosh, I think it was maybe The Last Night or Age of Extinction, one of the profoundly longer movies. And I had been a smart mouth on social media. I was like, well, instead of going to go see this movie, watch Transformers the movie instead, because you can watch that 3 times over in the time that it would take you to watch one of these Michael Bay movies. And again, not to beat the dead horse, but my problem with those movies is those run times and with the sustained violence. And to be fair, for my own personal consistency, I kind of feel the same way about most tentpole movies. Like, I'll say the same thing about these Marvel movies. Like there's no reason that Spider-Man Brand New Day has any business being 2.5 hours. If you chop 30 minutes off that movie and make it like a cool 2 hours, now you're really onto something. But man, it gets really really bloated in that last third of that movie there. So and it has some of that desensitizing where you just kind of find yourself numb for all of the special effects extravaganza. I think like the human brain and human eyes can only process so much before your brain just kind of shuts off. But back to Transformers the movie here. For example, of my saying that the violence isn't necessarily sustained like in the other movies we were talking about. We had just talked recently about how truncated the Battle of Autobot City is, the actual like final battle between the Autobots and the Decepticons, how truncated that actually is, and how much of it is not actually shown on the screen. So much so that the Lady Bird books version kind of skips through it almost entirely. There's like half a paragraph that describes what happens. But what are we talking about today? It's the introduction of Hot Rod and Daniel. The screaming horror of the shuttle attack fades, and we open on a serenely beautiful scene with Vince DiColla's score hitting a peaceful note of tranquility, like something off of a postcard. I really like this piece of music quite a lot. It's called Gone Fishin' on the full soundtrack album. And an interesting note about the Vince DiColla score album is that several of the tracks are longer in spots. We talked about how some of the music cues are kind of built to play underneath or substitute in the rock song soundtracks. But there's other ones where I think Vince DiColla just wrote more music than there was movie for. Like when we talked about Escape in the last episode and how chopped up and moved around that was. And I didn't even realize that until I started getting that deep into the TF Wiki write-up article on it. But it is fascinating because I've always enjoyed music scores. I've kind of slowed down on listening to score albums, but I remember when I was in high school in my early 20s, I would buy albums of scores all the time and listen to those, and I just don't necessarily have time in my current listening routine. Yeah, it is interesting to listen to scores as they're presented in album format and compare them to how they're presented in the final movie. And oftentimes there will be kind of like weird cuts and incongruities and vestiges and weird stuff that you don't necessarily think of when you're listening to it. But I really enjoy this opening sequence here. And, as much as I was gushing about the music, this is also one of my favorite pieces from artist Matt Ferguson. He did all of the artwork for the 35th anniversary of the movie, all the posters, and he did like a whole suite of different things, various DVD, Blu-ray covers, posters, pack-in images. There's like a book that comes with like the Zavi version that was sold in foreign markets that's really quite something. But some of my favorite pieces of his come from that 35th anniversary edition, and as part of that project, he made a set of nice lobby cards, nice cardstock, very artful and tasteful. We talked about one of them already. It's the Rival of Unicron. But my other favorite one is this shot here of Daniel and Hot Rod sitting on the grassy bank of this lake. It's a really beautiful composition, and I don't think fans give it enough credit. It's also of note, it's the fold-out inner cover of the cassette version of the reformatted edition soundtrack album, and I really enjoy the composition of Matt Ferguson's artwork because it presents it in like a widescreen image with Hot Rod and Daniel sitting off to the left-hand side, and then to the right of it is all this negative space with the lake and the trees, and it's almost Bob Ross-like in its kind of peaceful tranquility to it. It's a very affecting image. I've also spent the last 20 years realizing that no amount of restoration is going to make this shot of Hot Rod any less blurry. It is so weird, and I don't understand why it's so blurry when we first meet him. Basically, what happens is this entire art piece that I just described, but the establishing shot is on the lake, and then it pans to the left to where we see Hot Rod and Daniel, but they're blurry, and they are blurry in every single edition of the movie that I've watched. I watched no fewer than 3 of them for research for this, just to make damn sure. It's very odd. The TF Wiki also notes the reflections of Hot Rod and Daniel in the lake rarely line up with where they should be. But as I watch the scene now, I have a new take on it that I haven't considered before. What do you think the dynamic is between Hot Rod and Daniel here? Is it a Bumblebee and Spike situation where they're best buddies? Is it a Spike and Hound situation where they're buddies but not the bestest of buddies? Because that's what I've been thinking for the last 40 years, that Hot Rod and Daniel are like the bestest of friends. But looking at it from a different angle today, I wonder if babysitting Daniel is actually some kind of punishment, or maybe a duty or a task or a job that nobody else wants. Hot Rod either gets stuck with it or he volunteers for it. But either way, I don't know how often these guys hang out, just kind of based on this interaction. Because as I watch the fish splashing and playing in the lake, I'm realizing that Hot Rod is actually kind of awkward when he tries connecting with Daniel here.
Fish are jumping today, huh, Dano?
I guess so.
It's obvious that Daniel is a little down. But yeah, Hot Rod's response feels like he's not sure how to talk to this kid. Like when you're trying to break the ice, it's like you're in a room full of people that you kind of know, but not entirely. And you pull out something like, hey, how about that local sports team, huh? It's okay. You could tell me. But regardless of that, I do not doubt Hot Rod's sincerity here.
Hey, what's the matter?
I don't know, Hot Rod.
Come on, you can tell me.
Guess I just miss my dad.
There is a warmth in Judd Nelson's voice that I don't know if we give enough credit for. But it also becomes immediately clear that Hot Rod's defining character trait is just having fun.
Don't worry, Spike will be back soon. Oh, hey, I caught something.
This is another bit where your mileage may vary, but I enjoy the fishing bit quite a lot. Let me ask you this. Do you think that Hot Rod just genuinely likes fishing? Like maybe it's one of his hobbies? Or do you think this could be the first time he has ever picked up a robot-size fishing pole in his endless immortal life? Because listen to the enthusiasm when Hot Rod hooks a fish. This is almost the response from a first-timer, somebody who's never fished before and they actually catch something. I know this because I've been fishing a few times before in my life, and I can confirm that I have had that same surprised, enthusiastic response more than once, especially when I've hauled in a big one.
Whoa, look at the size of it!
Yep, it's a whopper, all right.
That's what she said. Or he said.
Try the Mandalorian and Grogu menu with the Barbecue Bounty Whopper. Have it the way.
Even in the most cynical times in my life, and I often identify as being pretty jaded and cynical, but I have never taken Hot Rod's enthusiasm about this fish is anything but genuine and sincere. And I think showing the scale between the fish and the robot is important to understand the size of the Transformers. Also, from the point of view of a child. It's pretty cool and it's pretty smart, and I like that the movie puts this in at this juncture so that for the very little that this movie gives for general audiences to kind of get their bearings on things and get perspective, that this kind of helps. It's pretty cool and it's pretty smart. We've talked about this before, but I still bristle at the hot take that humans don't belong in Transformers, that fans prefer stories about the Transformers that are off of Earth, that are in space, dealing with other Transformers and leaving the humans behind. But I have said this countless times. I feel like when you remove humans and Earth stuff and fish and lakes and landscape and things like that, you lose the scope and scale of how awesome and impressive the Transformers really are. Because again, I've said this so many times, but when everybody is a giant robot, nobody is a giant robot, and it's not impressive. It doesn't matter. But even for as excited as Daniel is about that fish, he has other ideas about how to spend this afternoon. The Transformers the movie predicted the future. In the year 2005, kids will be addicted to pocket-sized devices.
Hot Rod, the shuttle's coming. Let's watch it land.
Talk about dull, Daniel.
I remember a few months ago when I was talking about the shuttle leaving the Autobots moon base and talking about the wonder of space travel and how impressive it is, especially through the lens of the Artemis II mission. And I'm kind of with Daniel here. Watching a spaceship landing would be pretty cool. But here's another question for you. Do you think that Daniel thinks that his father, Spike, might be on that spaceship? Clearly, there's some kind of communication barrier between the moon base and Earth. And I bring this up because we know that Spike has to ask Ironhide to pass a message to his son, Daniel. Why can't Spike just call Daniel himself? What is blocking that line of communication? I would imagine because they're in a war, maybe there's some kind of like communication embargo or something. Or maybe Bumblebee is just a hard ass and it's like, no unnecessary calls. Or maybe Spike used up his prepaid phone card on like 1-900 numbers and raunchy websites, or maybe he was calling Miss Cleo or something like that and just like ran up the phone bill to where Bumblebee had to I don't know, just lay it down and say, you know what? It's an intervention. No more phone privileges for you, Spike. Regardless, Hot Rod relents and tosses this fish back, and I'm sorry, but I still really appreciate that in a movie that is so defined by death and destruction and intensity, that this fish is explicitly shown to be alive as it skips along the surface of the lake before slipping back into the water. The TF Wiki notes that when Hot Rod catches a fish, it is barely the size of his finger, but when he releases it, it's suddenly huge. And there's a underline there that links to a really fun page about scale that includes some info relevant to Transformers the movie and the size of different planets. It's a fun page that is much like many pages in the TF Wiki. It is numbingly comprehensive in terms of like how scale plays into fiction and toys. But just as my favorite song from the soundtrack, Dare, kicks in, the Transformers the movie predicts the future once again. 3 years before Back to the Future Part 2 came out, Transformers the movie predicted hoverboards. But not only that, because like every Transformers podcaster says that, oh, hey, Transformers the movie predicted hoverboards before Back to the Future did, her. But how about this? Not only that, since this movie, Transformers the movie, takes place in the then far-flung future of 2005, this also means that Transformers the movie predicted hoverboards 10 years sooner than the 2015 setting of Back to the Future Part 2.
Stop! Look! I need to borrow your hoverboard.
I love this entire sequence. I still get the hair standing up a little bit when I hear those opening notes of Dare, especially if I haven't seen the movie for a while. And on the opposite end of the spectrum from the Escape to Earth sequence in the last episode we talked about, here, the music beautifully matches the mood and the vibe of this scene. Daniel seems to have been taking lessons from Springer as he leaps up into the air enthusiastically over this hill and jumps onto this aggressively unsafe looking hoverboard contraption. This thing looks even more dangerous than the bad guy hoverboard from Back to the Future Part 2.
Keep it. I got a pit bull now.
I mean, this thing can't be street legal, right? Like, I mean, here in the Seattle area, we've had this epidemic of these e-bikes, which are kind of like these, not even pedal assist. They're bicycles with pedals on them. They're made for kids and like tweens and young teens or something. But basically, it has a battery-powered motor that you can go in excess of 20 to 30 miles in this thing. That people are really getting hurt. It's actually not as much of a joke as I would like to say, but like in terms of Transformers the movie predicting teenage death machines, that kind of thing. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, between Lime scooters and rideshare scooters and rideshare bikes and pedal assist bikes with electric motors and stuff like that, there's any number of extravehicular menaces on the roads in urban areas. And I can't help but wonder if Wheeljack invented all of these things, and none of it even have rocket thrusters. Like, they just have like battery powered engines. I give them simple brains. But like, you look at this thing, this hoverboard rocket sled thing. Daniel didn't buy this at Toys R Us. This is not a off the shelf item. Again, like I said, I am pretty sure that Wheeljack made this thing. But there's like this this large button in the center that activates rockets underneath. And basically it creates a fiery burst of thrust, and it kind of pushes off the ground. But then these jet boosters on the back of this thing propel Daniel forward. Again, it's all fire and blasting and aggressively too fast. Unlike Marty McFly sticking his foot in like a loop on the Back to the Future hoverboard, there is no place for Daniel to put his feet. So I don't understand the mechanics. Maybe he's got magnets in his shoes or something, but like magnets, how do they work? But like, I don't understand how, like, as soon as Daniel hits this thing, how the hoverboard goes forward, launches forward, and Daniel just falls off the back. The mechanics of this thing are insane. This whole thing where like Daniel is kind of like swishing back and forth as he's going through, like, I don't know if this is like a gully or a ditch or whatever. It's the floor is grass, but there seems to be kind of like walls, and you know there's some light obstacles to dodge. But this is some video game bullshit right here. I mean, like the old TNC Surf Designs game for the NES. Sorry, my apologies. That game's Christian name is Town and Country Surf Designs : Wood and Water Rage - a radical skateboarding and surfing action game for the Nintendo Entertainment System, published by LJN. My apologies, but that game is incredibly difficult, largely because there's stuff like a giant bush followed by a giant boulder, just like poor Daniel finds here for himself. The animation is actually very fluid and very cool, and I like how smooth the movement of Daniel is on the hoverboard. And watching it now, it reminds me of those water-propelled jetpacks or like surfboards, where like you may have seen these in like vacation destination places, and like Hawaii or whatever, where there's basically like an engine that pushes water through a hose, and through the force of that lifts you up into the air.
You get to drink from the fire hose! Okay, you ready? Open wide!
Honestly, I've always wanted to do something like that because I like jetpacks, and I haven't had the opportunity to do that yet, but I do wonder if that technology is another the Transformers the movie predicts the future again situation. I'm not sure. Regardless, Daniel's hoverboard bashes into this enormous rock, sending the kid hurtling forward toward certain death. Good thing Hot Rod is there to come up behind and scoop up the boy, but then after he grabs him, he immediately throws him up into the air as Hot Rod performs a move that they have no doubt practiced many, many times, as Hot Rod transforms into vehicle mode as Daniel drops into the driver's seat. Now, my friends at Autopod Decepticast were the first ones to make that joke, but that makes so much sense, because if you watch this, I mean, like, this is so well rehearsed. It's a social post that's lost to the sands of time. I looked because I remember finding this on Twitter like maybe like 10 years ago. Somebody made like a little graphic cartoon of basically the many deaths of Daniel. Like, he falls off the hoverboard and smashes against the rock, or like Hot Rod mistimes it and Daniel bounces off of the closed windshield cockpit of Hot Rod's car mode. It's particularly grisly stuff, but still pretty funny.
If you're gonna ride, Dano, ride in style.
But this all makes me think back to that dynamic that I was talking about earlier. There are a couple different ways to read that. Sure, you could piece together, you could intuit that Hot Rod and Daniel are best friends and that they have done this a million times together. Or you could read it as this is the first time that Hot Rod is so cavalier that he isn't even considering the consequences. But like I said, though, I do genuinely love this scene. With the dare and the scenery, it's really quite beautiful. And basically it's a fun music video. That's the vibe and feel of this scene. It's a uplifting, bright and colorful music video. And there's so much rich texture to it. Like, for these recordings, I watched the scene isolated, and I don't always go frame by frame unless there's something very specific, like, counting characters or trying to list off which characters enter the scene. But I don't always watch it frame by frame, but sometimes I do. But in watching it for these individual scene recordings, I notice things that pass by in a regular casual viewing. Stuff like the multi-scrolling backgrounds of majestic scenery and the lovely matte paintings and the extra bits in animation, like the blades of grass that flutter behind Hot Rod. This is all a really it's very cool, but more than that, there are several things within the scene that convey story elements that propel the plot or give exposition in a way that is so subtle that I wish there was more of this in the movie. Because basically, like, this sequence is also to establish the geography of this whole Autobot compound. Because, not only does it include the city, but it seems like there's outposts all over the place, that type of thing. But, like, there's this shot that establishes the scope of Autobot City and what it is.
Hey, let's stop here!
Why settle for a peak, Daniel, when you can see everything from Lookout Mountain?
As an aside, I do also love, and I genuinely appreciate that since most of the first season of the Transformers, and even the first third of season 2, I suppose, revolved around the power plant of the week, that basically Autobot City itself is just an enormous power plant. There's something that's thematically cool about that kind of tickles me. Now, granted, we've already discussed that the production of this movie began towards the end of season 1, in 1984, when the Transformers is a hit and we're going to get a feature. And basically the majority of the stories at that point are Power Plant of the Week. So even going back to Ron Friedman's first Banana Pants crazy psychedelic first draft, the one with rails and all that has a lot of like Power Plant of the Week thing. It's just basically like an expanded episode. But it is interesting that kind of storytelling style continues. I've said before, and I don't want to dwell on it too much here, but I think the reason why Transformers the movie clicks with me is that I think it's not better, that's the wrong word. It's a sequel to season 1. More so than it is a sequel to season 2. And I've tried to explain that to some of my friends before, and I always get looks like I don't convey it very well, or it's not a well thought through point. But I just feel like sensibilities like this, where like, the tide is turned, the script is flipped, and now the Autobots have a power plant city of their own, that kind of thing. It still has some thematic DNA with those crusty old season 1 episodes, as opposed to some of the more, even the spacefaring episodes of season 2, where things get a little more wacky. Again, that's a real, your actual mileage may vary. Now we'll get into the landscape and the function of Autobot City itself later when we talk about the scripts and storyboards, because there's more information in there. So I don't want to necessarily dwell right now on like the details of like, oh, well, it's a solar farm and a wind farm and a hydroelectric facility. It's somehow Autobot City is somehow all of the power plants all at the same time. No word on if they use wonderful clean coal at Autobot City, but we'll tackle that when we get to the extra material. But here, as the scene continues, here is where we meet Cup. He's running this road crew that includes Huffer, Hound, and Blue Streak, and they're moving these large barricades.
A little to the left. A little bit more.
And I do sure hope we get some kind of explanation of what they're supposed to be doing here, because after watching this movie for 40 years, this sequence makes even less sense the more I think about it. Why is the road closed? Why are they setting up barricades? Because these barricades, they look pretty aggressive, by the way, like the kinds of roadblocks that you would see set up in a war zone. Now you could say, but Mike, they're at war. Yeah, but not on Earth, because there is something about Autobot City on Earth that keeps the Decepticons away, or that the Decepticons are content to stay on Cybertron. My interpretation of this whole dynamic that the movie sets up is that the Autobots and the Decepticons have kind of retreated to neutral corners. I don't think there's as much active warfare as certainly as much as we've seen in the first 2 seasons of the cartoon, where it is just active conflict. I think, now that I'm thinking about it, I wonder if a portion of this 20-year gap is where they kind of settle into a Cold War of sorts. Now, granted, it's a little different in that the Decepticons have essentially won the war, but they've only won from the perspective of they have taken over Cybertron and they've pushed all the Autobots away. I've talked about in other episodes speculating about that dynamic, like how much do the Decepticons know about the moon bases? You know, because it seems like something happened to where, I don't know if it's a stalemate or whatever, but something happened where it's like, okay, the Autobots are just going to, I don't know. I wonder if it's like a oh my God, like a peace treaty type of thing, or maybe even like a ceasefire. Don't call it a two-state solution. Goodness. But like, maybe there is a thing where, like, I don't know, some kind of third party negotiates. Megatron and the Decepticons get Cybertron and they will stay there. The Autobots, you are exiled to the moon bases. Also, you can do whatever the hell you want on Earth because you have good relations with those people and it's on the other side of the galaxy anyway. Or is it? But regardless, it seems to me that this whole assault on Autobot City is a renewal of sorts of active conflict. Because again, go back to the beginning with the shuttle launch. You know, Ironhide, when are we going to start busting Deceptichops? The implication there directly is that there is no busting of Deceptichops to be had, and Ironhide is itching for a fight. So it's all very interesting to kind of ponder here. All of that to try to figure out why this road is closed and why Huffer and the gang are setting up barricades. We know the Autobots aren't fighters like they are, but yeah, I mean, what are these barricades for? I also like that when I paused it, I could actually read that the sign says, "Stop, this area off limits." That's another sign of increased production value in this movie. Half of the time in the original episodes of the Transformers cartoon, words would often be misspelled or otherwise unreadable. You'd have like different sized text and fonts and all kinds of craziness. But it is interesting that the text is explicitly legible here. But regardless, Hot Rod smashes through the barricade. The Autobots get out of the way just in time. But it looks to me, as I watch this over again, that Hot Rod actually tags Cup a little bit as he blows through, like a nudge or a hip check. Like if you listen to the sound, there's actually like a metallic crash to it. You know I'm already going to say it, but sometimes you just got to say the words. I completely relate to Cup, and he is absolutely in the right here in this situation to be so mad. The more I think about the character of Hot Rod early on in the movie here, I keep coming back to the notion that he's dangerous, that his recklessness and his carefree attitude makes him dangerous. He almost just ran over 4 dudes for no good reason, one of which is a senior citizen. And actually, if you listen to the voices of Huffer and Hound and Blue Streak, those are all old people voices. So you could... they're all old people. But I don't know. Maybe it's because I've got the box office on my mind from last week's episode. But to me, Hot Rod feels a little bit like Maverick, Pete Mitchell, Tom Cruise in Top Gun. Nobody wants to fly with Maverick because he's dangerous.
I don't like you because you're dangerous.
That's right. Nice, man. I am dangerous.
Maybe that's how he ends up with Daniel babysitting duty. He's too reckless for combat, so they give him a square job. I could see Ultra Magnus doing something like that. But even the way that he slides across the deck when they arrive at Lookout Mountain at this platform outpost thing, it's all very reckless. He almost slides right over the side of this thing. And 2 things. One, the Transformers the movie predicts the future again. Hot Rod just invented Tokyo Drift. But also, yes, I know. Autopod Decepticast spent an entire episode talking about the somewhat phallic appearance of this platform at Lookout Mountain.
That's a penis.
And here's where we get the first of several different Hot Rod transformation sequences. I really like the animation here, though. Like, this always kind of captured my imagination, where, like, the cockpit of the car flips up along with the front fender, and then Hot Rod just kind of stands up. It's not really that complex when you look at it kind of frame by frame, but it looks and sounds cool. Daniel runs to the telescope at the end of the platform, but I love this bit where his head is turned and he's watching the shuttle as he runs. Like, he is so distracted by this thing. Like, he could just keep running and just run over the edge, you know, like Wile E. Coyote. And Daniel pulls out a sign. And he's like, "Mother," and he just falls to his demise. But I do think it's a really cool little moment. And it captures Daniel's childlike wonderment, which I don't think is a bad thing. It's completely unrelated imagery, but it kind of reminds me of Christian Bale as a child in Empire of the Sun, you know, kind of like tilting as like the Japanese Zero planes kind of come in. It's like, oh, golly willikers, that's pretty cool. Turns out it wasn't. Ironically enough, actually, you know, this is related. They do tie together because they're enemy planes. You do get some more cool lighting effects here through some more telescope vision, one of my favorite tropes in the movie. And these are specifically not computer graphics, like that surly reviewer from the LA Times said. These are all hand-drawn images with special lighting effects and luminous paint. Anyway, Daniel discovers something's wrong.
Hot Rod, look! There's a hole in the shuttle!
What? You can win if you dare. Decepticons!
Like I said in previous episodes, I love when Transformers have drop-down visors. I mean, I like when Transformers have visors anyway. My favorite character is Soundwave. I'm looking at like no fewer than 6 different artist renderings of Soundwave on my wall here. Not only does he have a visor, but he also has a faceplate. He's got no face. But like there's something special about drop-down visors. It's like sunglasses. And Hot Rod's visor vision is especially cool. And I like that there's this warning alarm system. It's a really cool touch, and it's very subtle. But then Hot Rod immediately chooses violence, and there has been no better time for me to play this clip from It's Always Sunny.
It's a lucky thing I had my pieces.
Your pieces?
My gun.
Oh.
Anyway, I started blasting. Bang! Wow. Bang! Well, I don't see so good, so I missed. Then they ran away. I ran after them.
Okay.
Bang! Try to shoot them in the back. But I don't want so good either. Anyway, you guys all think I'm a hero, and I'll accept that responsibility.
It is still so damn cool the way Hot Rod's blasts go in sequence as he shoots. They never would have done this in the cartoon. And even like the wavy streaks, like it seems like there's like an unrefined rawness to his laser blasts. Like, it's a very cool effect where there's it's almost like a Ghostbuster proton pack type of things, which makes sense because his ammunition is photon charges. So I guess photons and protons are kind of the same thing, but regardless, it's visually interesting, and it kind of ties in with his character. I love exhaust pipes as guns. That's always really cool. And I also, though, like how as Hot Rod is just shooting here, this little bit with Starscream, he just kind of falls over. Like Hot Rod shoots him in the shoulder, but then Starscream just kind of like turns, looks over his shoulder, and tips over like he slipped on a banana peel or something. It's pretty funny. But Cup is asking the right questions, and Sunstreaker has now been swapped out for Bluestreak.
What's that darn fool doing?
Not to be picky, but I would think it would become apparent once the purple laser fire starts coming from the side of the shuttle, where there are explicitly no guns placed there. Like, there's this shot where Hot Rod and the Decepticons are shooting at each other, returning fire. And if you look at the design of the Autobot shuttle, it's got guns on it, and they're all facing forward, and there are none on the side of the ship. Now, we know that Ironhide was sent to Autobot City on Earth to collect Energon cubes and an army, but it also seems to me that this shuttle is already full of gasoline because Hot Rod just blows this thing sky high with one lucky shot. It's like this shot kind of like hits it in the middle, and the entire shuttle just erupts in these exploding flames. And from there, Megatron, Skywarp, Hook, and Scavenger spill out, followed by Soundwave and maybe Rumble. It's kind of hard to tell. And this shot is wicked, where it's another like multi-level thing where you see like Thundercracker and Blitzwing, and then Starscream flip transforms into jet mode and zips off as Megatron rolls back and fires his fusion cannon. There's this neat little gag where the blast actually propels him backwards, like it's like a backfire. He shoots it and he goes further back. Contrasted by the Decepticon jet streaking forward. You see Dirge kind of bringing up the rear there. But there's some really cool stuff here with perspective and depth that I really like. From there, Hot Rod scoops up Daniel as the platform completely explodes underneath them in a terrific burst of orange and pink energy. This is another one of those really cool explosion special lighting effects thing. Very, very cool and very vibrant. It's the colors of it remind me of the Transformers the movie logo with oranges and pinks, and very, very cool. As the entire side of the mountain shears off, Hot Rod holds Daniel close, and this is one of my absolute favorite shots of the movie. Basically, we zoom in on Daniel and Hot Rod as they're falling. First on Daniel, the wind is whipping his hair and he's screaming, but then we very smoothly move up to Hot Rod, and you see all of the shading and the reflections and the details in his face, like all the light and shadow and depth. You can even see different textures. Like you can tell that his eyes are glass while his armor is metal. And this is another one of those camera moves that feels cinematic as it's happening. We talked about in other sequences where the camera like spins and moves around and has almost like a prototype Michael Bay feel. This is another one of those shots where it zooms in and up and around and follows the character as they move around. Very, very cool. Hot Rod lands safely as Blitzwing zooms into frame, flanked by Shrapnel. And if this isn't a commercial for the Triple Changer, then I don't know what is.
Triple Changer Blitzwing transforms from tank to plane and from plane to robot.
Triple Changer! Autobots, stop him!
Sold separately from Hasbro.
Blitzwing zips in plane mode, flips and transforms into robot mode, and then immediately changes into tank mode. It's awesome. And if not for Astrotrain's chugga-chuggas,
thicker than train smoke,
and flipping the retreating Decepticons upside down when he turns into shuttle mode as they retreat Autobot City, this would be my favorite Triple Changer moment in the movie.
Come on down, Autocrat!
I should note that sequence takes place during the instrumental section of Dare, a piece of music I like quite a lot, and I don't want to spoil it, but this will not be the last time that I talk about this particular sequence. But another person that likes this sequence of Dare quite a lot is the podcast machine TFG1 Mike, who made this little side-by-side comparison between the original and the new reformatted edition of Dare.
You can win if you dare.
Kup races onto the scene, seemingly out of nowhere, transforming into truck mode. And again, everybody who's a Transformer transforms in Transformers the movie. I love it. But then when Kup gets close enough, he changes into robot mode, flips around the barrel of Blitzwing's tank cannon, and lifts it up and causes the Decepticon triple changer to blast his own guy, nailing shrapnel square in the chest and causing him to fall over, knocking into Blitzwing himself, and they both tumble together out of frame. We've talked about the humor in this movie and that violence can be used as humor. I don't know if that was the intent here, if that was the intention, but I've always found this bit to be really funny. It's always a good laugh when bad guys fall over and into each other, right? But despite the rescue, Hot Rod goes for a backhanded compliment rather than gratitude.
Not bad for an old-timer.
I mentioned it just a minute ago, but I'm in a weird phase of my life where I have become incredibly literal-minded and hyper-fixated on what people actually say versus what is meant to be implied or understood. I don't know, maybe I relate too much with Drax the Destroyer from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Maybe I've seen those movies too many times.
His people are completely literal. Metaphors are gonna go over his head.
Nothing goes over my head. My reflexes are too fast. I would catch it.
But I have landed on this philosophy of sometimes you just gotta say the words. And while Hot Rod might be glad that Kup just saved him and Daniel, he doesn't explicitly say it. I'm just saying a thank you would be nice. And then maybe make the crack about not bad for an old-timer, because that's still an actually funny line, and it feels like it's said with admiration instead of snarkiness. Like, I mean, Hot Rod even chuckles a little bit, and it's not nervous laughter. I think it's admiration. I know this is a silly kids movie, but it would have softened the blow and made Hot Rod look even less like a jerk if he had just thanked Kup first. You know, thanks, not bad for an old timer, that kind of thing. Or, you know, thanks for the save, not so bad for an old timer, right? You know, that kind of thing. But it would also seem that Kup took it in the spirit it was intended.
Old timer? That's something you'll never be if you don't get back to the city.
And I love this little bit, how Kup just kind of like winds up and jabs his finger at Hot Rod like he's throwing a pitch, like he's got some high heat. Like he really puts some mustard onto this motion. Like he like takes his hand and like with his whole shoulder and arm points a finger accusingly at Hot Rod. It's really cool. And like this grimace that he has on his face, like he's tilted down so it looks like he's got his angry eyes on. It's a really cool composition. But just then, the gremlin Starscream, who apparently has been there long enough to just stand there in robot mode, he changes into jet mode and just bombs the hell out of the Autobots as he spins away.
Save it, Kup! Let's burn rubber.
And not for nothing, I think the favor is returned here as Hot Rod makes Kup hit the deck with him. Hot Rod has saved Kup's life just as Kup had saved Hot Rod's life with Blitzwing earlier. I think they're even. From there, Hot Rod transforms in a completely different way than he did the first time, followed by Kup as they drive off the mountain and back towards the city that we see is now under attack. And we'll stop there for today. Great scene, great sequence, great songs, one of my very favorites and one of the most iconic in the Transformers the movie. But like I said in the cold open of this episode, regardless of all of Hot Rod's recklessness, ignoring safety regulations, destroying public property, elder abuse, child endangerment, all just to get a better view of a shuttle landing, and somehow those are all the right decisions. Because if not for that darn fool shooting at the shuttle, the Autobots would have had even less time to prepare for the Decepticon assault. and surely even more Autobots would have been killed. Megatron's prediction would have come true. They would have slipped by the early warning systems in the Autobot shuttle and destroyed Autobot City and vanquished the Autobots forever. And credit to Daniel, too, for first wanting to go watch the shuttle land to begin with, but also for spotting the Decepticons as well. Daniel is a great narc and good at letting the adults know when something is up. And I know this is fiction and a product of writing, but this absolutely aligns with my other newfound philosophy of everything happens for a reason. So much of this story happens what you could interpret as haphazardly. But yeah, I'm not to go on some weird philosophical spiritual journey with you or whatever, but like enough things have happened in my life to where I feel like there are some kind of cosmic forces in the universe nudging us in the direction that we go. I mean, obviously we still have, free will and we're not free of consequences. So it's not like you could just throw your arms up and things will happen. But I do believe that I don't know if it's as touchy-feely as man, every time a door closes, a window opens. I don't know if I believe that deeply, but I've had enough things that have happened in my life recently where it's just not unlike some of the weird coincidences and happenstances and circumstances that are kind of like in a domino effect that, they just happen for a reason. I think that luck, the philosophy of luck is when skill meets opportunity, that there is a certain degree of chance to it, but sometimes chance needs a little bit of help also. That's enough philosophy from Mike Seibert today. And it's here at the halfway mark of this project, which means, man, from this point forward, we are really going to start picking up steam until the end of the year. Buckle up, friends. It's going to be a wild ride. But before we get there, it is another music video episode. So it's time for song legislation and a segment I call Dare Legislation. So we're going to start with the TF Wiki and their write-up on the song Dare. Dare is a song by Stan Bush featured on the 1986 album The Transformers, the Movie original motion picture soundtrack. Actually, I'm sorry, let me take that again. Featured on the 1986 album The Transformers, the Movie - original motion picture soundtrack. Please, I gotta get it right. Along with The Touch, it is one of two songs performed by Stan Bush included in The Transformers, the movie. It plays early in the movie after Hot Rod and a moody Daniel have a brief conversation concerning Spike's prolonged absence. Daniel receives a signal indicating that an Autobot shuttle is about to land nearby. As his spirits are raised by the news, Dare begins to play, accompanying the duo's race to Lookout Mountain until Hot Rod notices a group of Decepticons using the shuttle as a means to ambush Autobot City. It reprises later when the Autobots storm Unicron, crashing through his eyes. Interestingly enough, the page for Dare here is not nearly as robust as perhaps I was thinking, or certainly not as robust as the entry for Escape. But in this, it does give some specific album releases, some of which you might know, some I'm not as familiar with. But as far as album releases go, 1986, The Transformers: the Movie - original motion picture soundtrack from Scotty Brothers Records. In 1987, it's included on the Stan Bush album Call to Action, the 1997 remix version, which I'm not sure if I'm familiar with. 1998, BotCon 97, The Concert by 3H Productions, extended version live with Vince DiCola.
The fire in your heart is going. You can fly if you try, leaving the past behind. Heaven only knows that you might find. Yeah, then I believe you can survive. Power is at your command. Yeah, then I keep all your dreams alive. It's time to take a stand. You can win if you dare.
2001, Vince DiCola presents the Protoform Sessions, also from 3H Productions. There's a demo version performed by Gary Falcone. Also in 2001, Artistic Transformation, Themes and Variations from 3H Productions, solo piano arrangement performed by Vince DiCola. And I haven't looked recently, but both of these, the Protoform Sessions and Themes and Variations, have been reissued by Special Edition Music, a small indie label that partnered with Vince DiCola. I already had Protoform Sessions. I bought it from Vince DiCola at a TFCon, but I did not have Themes and Variations, so I ordered that and got my copy autographed by Mr. Vince DiCola, and it's terrific. I can't remember if I mentioned this in another episode, but I will certainly mention it in an upcoming episode when we talk about some of the other musical pieces. But like, to hear these familiar tracks and familiar music cues played on solo piano is a very different but incredibly interesting experience. Not all of them are super great, but all of them are profoundly interesting, and Dare is kind of neat, as you just heard. And then in 2007, The Transformers the movie, The Transformers, the movie, - original motion picture soundtrack, 20th anniversary edition from Legacy Recordings. I believe that's the Sony BMG version that was issued around the time of the 20th anniversary DVD, and that is really quite good, that version of the album, because it has some additional Vince DiCola instrumental tracks like the Unicron medley and a couple others. And while it doesn't have a version of Dare or The Touch from Vince DiCola and Stan Bush, it does include their collaborative version of the Transformers theme, which is really very cool. And we'll talk about that when we get to it in a different episode. Now, while this entry in the TF Wiki does catalog published versions of Stan Bush's version of Dare, it doesn't include any of the published cover versions, of which, like we talked about in the last episode, there are now a few different published cover albums, including the Respect the Prime 1986 revisited version of the album by Electronic Saviors that is performed by the Dark Clan. Obviously, you have the Cybertronic Spree version from their Transformers 1986 album. And then certainly the new version for the Transformers, the movie, the soundtrack, the reformatted edition, use any number of colons and dashes, however you like, that performed by Knights of Unicron with Stan Bush. And the more I've listened to that version of the song, the more I've softened on it. I didn't like it at first. It's fine, but I did also want to touch on other instances where Dare has been used. Obviously, Dare hasn't been used as often as The Touch. I think it's interesting, like The Touch is the more famous and ubiquitous song and is most closely associated with Stan Bush and Transformers the movie, but I've always maintained that Dare is the better song, and I maintain that because it was created by folks who would do the soundtrack for Transformers the movie. Essentially, it was made for Transformers the movie. But again, Dare has been used in a couple different spots. It was in an episode of Glow in Season 1, Episode 7, Live Studio Audience, featuring a wrestling training montage involving Ruth and Debbie. It's also featured in a movie called Goon: Last of the Enforcers, which incidentally stars Stifler, Sean William Scott, as a hockey player. And there was, I remember once upon a time, Kevin Smith was going to make a hockey movie called Hit Something or Hit Someone or something about basically this type of character, a goon, an enforcer in hockey. and that project just never went anywhere. I think there were some allegations that maybe this was kind of a ripoff of that concept that Kevin Smith was going to do, but I haven't researched it in years, and honestly, this is the first time I've thought about it in years. But regardless, during that movie, a movie I have not seen, by the way, Dare plays during Doug's battered and bruised training montage. Now, what's interesting about both its use in Glow and in Goon, Glow Goon? I don't know. The Mandalorian and Glow Goon? No, that's stupid. I'm cutting that out. That's dumb. That's a stupid joke. Anyway, I do think it's fascinating that both projects came out in 2017 and that both are specifically training montages. It was also used in an episode of The Goldbergs in season 4, an episode called Fonzie Scheme, where Barry gets his golf cart stuck and then does like a sick jump, where like, and again, it's kind of presented as kind of, man, it's sort of a training montage, but also kind of similar to how it's presented in Transformers the movie. I just now thought about that. I haven't seen that episode in years, but like I remember perking up when I saw it because we watched Goldberg's first run, and we'll talk about Goldberg's later because there is a specific Transformers the movie episode that I was very pleased with, that I wasn't expecting to be so faithful, but it doesn't connect to any of the scenes that we've talked about so far, so I haven't mentioned it before today. But like, you think about it, like Barry and his golf cart on a golf course, not all that dissimilar to the landscape of this gully that Daniel is rocketing his hoverboard through. I think that's a little bit of a stretch. Now, I do kind of want to talk about the origin of Dare a little bit. Dare was created during the production of the Transformers the movie in 1986. Unlike The Touch, which Stan Bush co-wrote, Dare was actually written for the Transformers the movie by composer Vince DiCola and lyricist Scott Shelley. Vince DiCola was already creating the film's electronic score, and Dare was the one vocal song on the soundtrack in which he directly participated. Stan Bush was brought in to perform the song, and the recording was made during the period where Stan Bush was working on his second album for Scotti Brothers. The result became Hot Rod's signature song in the movie. One particularly interesting note also is that Scott Shelley wasn't just the lyricist, he also played guitar on the recording. And I remember I've talked to both Vince DiCola and Stan Bush separately on my podcast, and they tell very similar, if not occasionally overlapping stories about the production of Dare and The Touch. And I think what's happened over 40 years is it's all just kind of consolidated into, Vince was working on the soundtrack, Stan Bush was working on his stuff for Scotti Brothers. Scotti Brothers selected the stuff for Transformers the movie soundtrack, and here we are. So, but that is enough Dare legislation for one day. Let's move on and find out how other versions of this scene played out. First, let's get into the jet and head over to the UK and find out how this played out in the Lady Bird Books Tell a Tale storybook.
England.
On the other side of the galaxy, on planet Earth, all was peaceful. Near Autobot City, a boy and an Autobot were fishing. The boy was Daniel, the young son of Spike, and the Autobot was his best friend, Hot Rod. Daniel was looking glum. He missed his father, far away on Moonbase 2.
The shuttle from Cybertron is coming,
he said.
Let's watch it land.
Hot Rod transformed, and they sped to a lookout point on a mountain high above Autobot City. Daniel was watching the shuttle make its approach run through a telescope when he cried,
Hot Rod! Something's wrong! There's a hole in the shuttle!
Hot Rod looked up.
Decepticons!
He cried. In seconds, the battle for Autobot City was raging.
Every time I play a Lady Bird book segment, I always talk about the sound design, but I don't think I've called out the actual transforming sound effect, and I had to listen to like half of this before I realized that's what it was, but like this like just boop, that's the, instead of the classic, it doesn't have that. It's just like one sustained tone to signal transforming. Always kind of cracked me up. All right, from there, let's take a look at the Flint Dille revision. This is the August 6, 1985 revision of the script. We're going to start at the end of page 8 and into page 9. This scene picks up directly after the shuttle attack, just as it does in the finished film. Dissolve 2, exterior Earth, close shot, miniature radar station. A child's hands hold a scanner device which tracks a traveling blip across a star map towards a pulsing dot which represents the Earth. Daniel. The shuttle just zipped past checkpoint Zeta. On Daniel. Daniel, a classic 12-year-old American boy, watches the portable viewer, which is like an oversized Boy Scout compass. Wide shot to show he is in an old-fashioned, quote-unquote, fishing hole on Earth, surrounded by weeping willows, assorted trees and shrubs, and that his fishing pole is stuck in the dirt, the line floating lazily out on the water. Daniel, let's watch Ironhide land it, Hot Rod. As Daniel runs to a small skateboard-like device, hits a button, and watches, it transforms into a hoverboard and rides it like a surfer up a steep, grassy hillside. We change angle to feature Hot Rod, a quote-unquote adolescent Autobot. He is in robot mode, sitting with his fishing rod held between two fingers, looking bored with it all. Hot Rod, talk about dull. Then he tosses the rod into the water. On Daniel riding his hoverboard up the hill. Daniel calling excitedly, hurry or we'll miss it. Hot Rod lopes uphill after Daniel. Hot Rod, if you're gonna ride, Dano, ride in style. Hot Rod catches up with Daniel, scoops him off his hoverboard, transforms to automotive mode, and rides over crest of hill with Daniel in the front seat. Another angle on Autobot City. Follow Hot Rod up and over a roadway leading around the perimeter of Autobot City, which becomes visible the instant Hot Rod clears the rim of a hill. As they travel, we should also be getting a sense of what Autobot City is all about. Parentheses. Design note. Autobot City looks like a federal energy project gone mad. Here, Autobots are trying to exploit every known means of getting energy. The mountain is covered with solar panels. Windmills spin in the valley. Oil derricks pump, and not far away a hydroelectric dam catches millions of volts. Near all of these various things are energon compressors, which turn the raw energy into energon cubes. No reference to wonderful clean coal. In the background of these scenes, we should see various panel truck-type Autobots cruise up in auto mode to stacks of this energon, convert to humanoid mode, load up their vans, then convert to auto mode again and drive the energon into Autobot City. In short, it should be clear that the purpose of Autobot City is to harvest energy. All the while, Hot Rod and Daniel are riding recklessly out from the Autobot City and up into neighboring hills for an overview of the circular landing area, which resides within the bowl, quote-unquote, created by the city structure and natural surroundings. Daniel, hey, let me out. Hot Rod, why settle for a peak when you can see everything from Lookout Mountain? Daniel, but we're not supposed to go beyond city limits, exclamation point. Now we're getting somewhere. Hot Rod, Chromo Chicken, exclamation point. On Cup and other Autobots, Cup, a grizzled old soldier, quote-unquote, of an Autobot, is directing the positioning of a large metal road barricade. Hot Rod barrels through a sign which reads, "Stop, this area off limits," almost knocking Cup over in dust and wind. Cup disgustedly watches Hot Rod drive up the mountain. Cup, to sound like swearing, "Cam bustin' turbo revvin' young punk." Oh, I like that. Cut to mountain above Autobot City, lookout point. Hot Rod arrives at a viewing platform carved in mountainside and transforms back to humanoid mode. Daniel rushes to a set of public viewing binoculars and peers into them. Hot Rod, this is it. Now take a squint through those babies. Daniel, Hot Rod, look, there's a hole in the shuttle. Hot Rod, what?
What? What country you from?
Daniel's POV, binocular Matt, the shuttle. The whole Megatron blasted in order to get into the shuttle mars the otherwise perfect exterior of the ship. Angle on Daniel and Hot Rod. Hot Rod looks up and a pair of futuristic binoculars pop out of his eyes. Hot Rod's POV, the shuttle. Hot Rod's vision, now infinitely better than human vision, spots something truly disturbing. Starscream and several Constructicons inside the ship. Hot Rod, Decepticons. Angle on Hot Rod. Drawing his gun, he starts firing on the shuttle. Hot Rod, this is for Ironhide, and so's this. Angle on the shuttle. Rays streak through the hole, searing Starscream. He ducks away from the door. Starscream, I'm hit! Angle on Megatron. Standing behind a pair of Decepticons who pilot the shuttle, he turns to see the Constructicons firing out of the hole. Megatron, he's furious. Megatron, you imbecile, our cover is blown. Starscream, it was your stupid strategy. Cut to angle on Cup construction crew. Cup and the Autobot construction crew watch Hot Rod shooting at the shuttle. Cup, what's that darn fool doing? Hound looks up and points. Hound, Decepticons. Angle on the shuttle. Suddenly it cracks open and Decepticons shoot out of the wreckage like toys from a piñata. Close, Megatron in midair. Megatron shouting to forces, attack! He looks down and fires. Hot Rod and Daniel. Hot Rod pulls Daniel back as Megatron's blast shears off the viewing platform, which crumbles and falls down the steep mountain. Hot Rod, hang on! Putting Daniel under one arm, he pivots and kicks up at Hook and Scavenger, who are descending on him in humanoid mode, causing them both to crash against the mountainside, which starts a landslide, which Hot Rod rides down the slope, pursued by Decepticon fire. Hot Rod shouting, whoa, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 O's and 3 A's and 1 H. Angle on bottom of mountain slope. Blitzwing. Blitzwing flies down in jet mode, transforms to robot mode, looks up at this slide riding Hot Rod and Daniel, transforms to tank mode and takes aim. Blitzwing, amused. Come on down, Auto Brat. On Hot Rod and Daniel. As Hot Rod tumbles, he covers Daniel with his arms and tries unsuccessfully to slow his fall. Hot Rod, yee! With 8 eyes and an exclamation point. On Blitzwing, about to fire when Cup's arm descends into shot, spinning Blitzwing's turret around. Blitzwing's blast scorches Shrapnel, who is flying nearby. Blitzwing transforms to robot mode and turns as Cup comes flying feet first into Blitzwing, knocking him off the mountain ledge. Follow Cup as he lands in front of Hot Rod, who is just coming to a stop at the bottom with Daniel. Hot Rod, not bad for an old-timer. Cup, gruffly, old-timer, that's something you'll never be if you don't get back to the city. You know what we used to do with cocky, insubordinate upstarts? Hot Rod, interrupting, save it. Starscream, transforming into jet mode, fires on them with laser bursts, which chew up the ground beside them. Hot Rod and Cup, with Daniel, race toward Autobot City, transforming into vehicle mode as shots gouge the terrain around them. Cut to Perceptor in microscope mode on battlement of Autobot City. And we'll stop there. And this gives us so many clues to so many things that are implied but not stated. Like, I like the dialogue between the Decepticons about their cover being blown. It's again, sometimes you gotta say the words. I also like that Hound, who is in this scene now, also notes that it's Decepticons because nobody else has that recognition until Perceptor. I like that little bit of addition. I also like that this kind of gives a little more insight into the Hot Rod Daniel dynamic, but also not really. But here, they seem to be both explicitly bored with fishing. So all of that stuff I took earlier about Hot Rod's, whimsy at catching a fish, none of that is here in the script. He seems to be aggressively bored, and also in the finished film, he has a robot-sized fishing pole for his robot-sized hands, an accessory that does come with the Studio Series 86 figure, the new one, the Target version. Yeah, here in the script, it's like he's holding a teeny tiny human-sized fishing pole between his fingers, which is absolutely ridiculous. I like the finished film better. And obviously, shout out to the description of Autobot City. This this certainly conveys more than what the movie does. Like, you can look at those richly detailed background paintings and kind of intuit what Autobot City is here, but I like that there's description here in the script so that you have a better understanding. It's unclear to me why or how Hot Rod knows that Ironhide is no longer amongst the living and needs to be avenged, because he says something like, "This is for Ironhide and so is this." He also specifically pulls out a gun instead of using his wrist blasters. But yeah, some interesting stuff, and the confrontation between Blitzwing, Shrapnel, and Cup kind of goes a little bit differently. The last thing I'll note is that no other Autobots aside from Hound are explicitly mentioned in the script. I wonder if that will come around later when we get into the earlier Ron Friedman version, because I'm wondering or hoping if there's a way to resolve the incongruity with Blue Streak being with Huffer and Cup, and then later it's Sunstreaker. But for now, let's see what Ron Friedman has cooking up for us in the second revision draft. This is the May 2nd, 1985 revision. And we're going to start basically at the beginning of the story. This is on page 3, the last bit of page 2A, which is a part of this May 2nd, 1985 revision. And again, does pick up after the shuttle attack, much like the finished film. Cut to close shot radar type scan screen as traveling blip moves across the star map towards pulsing dot of light which indicates position of the Earth. A child's hands are working scanner device to track the blip. Daniel, the Cybertron moon shuttle's coming. On Daniel, and Ron Friedman gives the same description as carries over into the Flint Dilley script, and I do think it's interesting, and I think incorrect, that it refers to Daniel as being 12 years old. I've always thought he's much younger. I would love to hear what your interpretation is. Like, I take him as being like 9. 12 seems a little too old. But regardless, his fishing pole is stuck in the dirt by its handle, the light floating lazily on the water. We don't yet see to whom he is speaking. Daniel, let's watch it land. Come on, Hot Rod! ! As Hot Rod runs to his bicycle and starts pedaling furiously to get up steep, grassy hillside, we change angle to feature Hot Rod. And the description is similar but different. Hot Rod is an adolescent Autobot, kind of hot-tempered, cocky, uncertain but good-natured, and, on occasion, stupidly heroic. He is in robot mode, sitting at edge of fishing hole with fishing rod held between 2 fingers, looking bored with it all. When he speaks, his voice cracks, still unsettled in growth process. Parentheses, note, this adolescent voice crackle has a certain electronic static quality to it that will become a baritone undertone when Hot Rod, quote-unquote, matures. Now, that's kind of interesting. I'm glad they ditched the voice crackle thing, because that would be pretty irritating. But this description, hot-tempered, cocky, uncertain, but good-natured, and on occasion stupidly heroic, I love that description of Hot Rod. Like, it's a he's a good dude. He's dangerous, but still a good dude. We continue. Hot Rod, what's the big deal, Daniel? It's all strictly auto circuit pilot programming. Gets jerk on his line, pulls line up to show he's caught 3 large fish. He looks them over without interest. Humph, talk about boring. Apparently, Hot Rod only likes fishing in Mike Seibert's imagination. On Daniel riding his bike up the hill. Daniel calling excitedly, "We're gonna miss it." On Hot Rod, as he smiles, tosses fish and rod aside and starts looping uphill after Daniel. Hot Rod, if you're gonna ride in style. Hot Rod catches up with Daniel, scoops him off his bicycle, transforms to automotive mode, and rides over crest of hill with Daniel in the front seat. Another angle on Autobot City. As we follow Hot Rod in automotive mode and ride up and over roadway, landing around perimeter of Autobot City, which becomes visible the instant Hot Rod clears the rim of the hill. As we move along with Hot Rod, we are in effect panning to establish Autobot City and its fortified areas, bridges, ramps, structures, etc. And we also see activity of several Autobots working to install huge metal shields, fortification-style walls, and electronic panel boards, gun emplacements, etc. All the while, Hot Rod and Daniel are riding out from the Autobot City and up into neighboring hills for an overview of the circular landing area which resides within the bowl created by the city structure and natural surroundings. Intercut to Daniel as required. Daniel, wow, we're at observation level already. Let me out. Hot Rod, why settle for a peak when you can see everything from Lookout Mountain? Daniel, but we're not supposed to go beyond city security. Hot Rod, hey, what are you anyway, a chromo chicken? Nothing's gonna happen. Also, I'm pretty sure I saw a chromo chicken open for Coal Chamber once. But in case I forget, and in case this version of the script goes long and I run out of gas again, like I did the last time, 25 pages, good Lord. But I do think it's interesting, again, that this definitively answers that area is off limits and that they know that it's off limits and they choose to go there anyway. That's interesting. And it doesn't really convey that in the final film as clearly. On Cup and other Autobots, as Cup, a grizzled old soldier of an Autobot, is directing the positioning of a large metal road barricade at the start of a narrow road which winds up the mountain which backs Autobot City. Before barricade can be placed beside sign which reads, "Stop, this area off limits," Hot Rod barrels past, almost knocking Cup over in dust and wind. Hot Rod, now relax and enjoy my driving. On Cup, as he reacts and watches Hot Rod drive up the mountain, cut to mountain above Autobot City lookout point. No line from Cup. As Hot Rod arrives at viewing platform carved into mountainside and transforms back to humanoid mode, Daniel rushes to large viewing binoculars, the kind you see at national parks, and turns to look up. Daniel, I should be able to pick up the shuttle as soon as it reaches the atmosphere. Here it is. Daniel's POV, binocular map, the shuttle. As it moves into view, it turns nose toward camera and then moves to the side, revealing gaping hole in its side and Decepticon hordes. Daniel, Hot Rod, there's something wrong. It's ... As shuttle keeps coming, the Insecticons start chewing it up until it is completely devoured, leaving nothing but Megatron, Constructicons, Insecticons, etc. moving out and into extreme close-up as if ready to break through the lens into Daniel's face. Daniel, it's Megatron. Cut to Megatron in midair, high above Lookout Point, but descending fast, the sky dark with his attacking forces, which start bombing and using laser fire on Autobot City and on Lookout Point area. Megatron shouting to forces, "Destroy Autobot City! Decepticons, ho!" He looks down and fires on Hot Rod and Daniel as Hot Rod pulls Daniel back and Megatron's blast shears off viewing platform, which crumbles and falls into space. Hot Rod, hang on! Putting Daniel under one arm, he pivots and kicks up at Hook and Scavenger, who are descending on him in humanoid mode. He kicks Hook into Scavenger, causing them to both crash against mountainside, which starts landslide.
And if you see my reflection in the snow-covered hills,
on which Hot Rod rides, his feet churning to keep his balance as he moves down slide, pursued by Decepticon Fire, shouting, "Ooh," with 9 O's. As he tries to survive the motion. Angle on bottom of mountain slope, Blitzwing. As Blitzwing looks up at slide riding Hot Rod and Daniel and takes aim up at them. Blitzwing, amused. "I'm waiting for you, Auto Brat. Come on down." He snickers, levels to fire. I kind of like that line better. On Hot Rod and Daniel, as Hot Rod covers Daniel with his arms and desperately treads falling rock, his pumping feet almost a blur, showing his descent, but unable to stop completely or get away from Blitzwing's evil grin. Hot Rod, yee, with just as many eyes as there are in the other version of the script. On Blitzwing, as he is about to fire, an evil smile on his face. Cup's arm shoots into shot, knocking Blitzwing's weapon askew, so its blast scorches Shrapnel, who is flying nearby. As Blitzwing reacts, he turns and we change angle to Cup as he comes flying feet first into Blitzwing, knocking him off the mountain ledge. Cup lands and confronts Hot Rod, who is just coming to a stop at the bottom of his slide ride with Daniel. Hot Rod, "Gee, thanks, Cup. We're in big trouble." Cup, gruffly, "You still are. Transform and roll for the city." Thank you, Ron Friedman. Starscream zooms past in jet mode and strafes them with laser bursts, which chew up rocks and ground beside them. Hot Rod reacts with yelp and transforms, as does Cup, both in vehicular mode, racing back down mountain under attack from Starscream and other Decepticons, which pursue them on their flight down and into Autobot City, as we cut to Perceptor on battlement of Autobot City. And we will leave it there because now we're getting back into the Battle of Autobot City, and we have covered that already. So yeah, Ron Friedman must have listened to this podcast from beyond the grave, and somehow back in May 2nd of 1985 added the line of Hot Rod thanking Cup for the rescue. That's incredible.
Woo! Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about. Woo!
The only other major difference here is that instead of shooting down the shuttle, the Insecticons just eat it, which doesn't really make much sense, but whatever. Now, for other versions of this scene, I want to talk a little bit about the original Marvel Comics adaptation from 1986. And the biggest difference I want to point out here is that the shuttle filled with Decepticons in the comic book doesn't get shot down by Hot Rod, doesn't get eaten by Insecticons. Instead, they just land. They literally successfully do the thing that Megatron says. They do make it to Autobot City and land and just basically disembark as these Decepticon troops go into the city. And what's interesting, though, is I haven't visited the Marvel Comics version as often as I should have, because I've actually missed a bunch of stuff in some recent episodes. As of this recording, the new version of the Skybound publication of the original Marvel Comics adaptations, which includes both the Marvel Comics version and the IDW version, that is available. I have not received my copy yet as of this recording, so I don't have it like right in front of me. And quite frankly, my 3 issues of the Marvel Comics are in a box on the other side of the room, and the only time I look at them is when I want to find something very specific, like the Ultra Magnus drawing and quartering. So I haven't been studying it as often as I should have for some of these episodes, because again, I've missed some stuff. But I do want to call attention to a podcast that you should check out. My buddy New Daniel, who is also a fan of Autopod Decepticast, Daniel Collins, he is part of the Geeks with Beards podcast, and they just recently did an episode on this 3-issue Marvel Comics limited series of the Transformers the movie adaptation, and they point out all of the differences, all of the stuff that I've missed. It's a really cool listen, and you should check it out. Daniel is a cool dude. He's been on my show as a part of a panel episode for Two Mics Too Furious, where we're just talking about Transformers. But he was also on a podcast called Dissect the Film, where he was a guest on that show to talk about Transformers, the movie 1986. I have not listened to that episode yet as of this recording, but that is certainly on my list to listen to, and check that out. I'll put links to these guys in the show notes and share them on social media for you to check out. Now, I do have some more TF Wiki legislation for us regarding Lookout Mountain, and this has kind of become a point of contention for fans over the years, because there's hints of where the Transformers live. It's heavily implied that Mount St. Hilary, the fictional mountain that the Ark crashes into, and the volcano that the Autobots live in, that was basically inspired by Mount St. Helens here in Washington, where I live. And it's interesting because the landscape in season 1 and 2 of the Transformers cartoon is occasionally like the Pacific Northwest, but also kind of not. We do have flat deserts, like is shown in the cartoon, but that's on the other side of the state across the Cascade Mountains. Washington is very fascinating, actually, from its topography and geography. It's kind of defined by this mountain range. One side is near the water, and it's all green and lush and Seattle-like, and then the other side is more barren and hot. I have family that hails from Eastern Washington, so I'm not going to throw too much shade there, but it really is a state with a division, and neither side likes each other. So it is just a very fascinating. But my point being is, when I was growing up, I just assumed that Autobot City was near the Ark. So looking at the landscape here as it's presented, this always presented to me as the Pacific Northwest, because it's got mountains and trees and water and all of this stuff. But I'll read this write-up of Lookout Mountain from the TF Wiki, and it is written with the same signature snarky attitude that several other entries are, so take it in the spirit that it's written. Lookout Mountain is a mountain overlooking Autobot City on Earth. The mountain previously featured an artificial observation deck. Hot Rod claims you can see everything from Lookout Mountain within the usual constraints of a round planet. This may or may not include such sights as seeing 7 states from Rock City, Ruby Falls, the world's steepest incline railway, and the final or temporary resting place of Brawn. At the very least, it is appropriately an ideal point from which to watch shuttles approaching Autobot City. In fiction, in the Transformers cartoon in the year 2005, the main mountain road was blocked off, possibly for repair, by a team of Autobots overseen by Kup. Hot Rod crashed through their blockade and drove up the mountain road to the artificial observation point. After Daniel noticed Decepticons aboard an incoming shuttle and Hot Rod fired on it, the Decepticons retaliated, blowing the observation point to smithereens in the Transformers the movie. Notes: there are several lookout mountains within the continental United States. Which, if any of these is the lookout mountain that appeared in the Transformers movie, is unclear. The pop-up commentary on the 20th anniversary DVD states that this lookout mountain is in Chattanooga, Tennessee. In actuality, that lookout mountain is a plateau with the northernmost point, as well as most of the tourist attractions and the city of Lookout Mountain, Georgia, just outside Chattanooga, with the majority being located in Georgia and Alabama. On last week's show, we read some vintage reviews from the opening of the Transformers the movie. I only got around to reading the ones that published on August 8th, which actually weren't all that many. So I'm going to read another batch for you today. These published on August 9th, which in 1986 was on a Saturday. So in Saturday newspapers, these were some of the reviews that came out for Transformers the movie, which is now playing in theaters. Now, as I mentioned last week, these are largely syndicated columnists and writers. So I will shout out the newspaper that I saw it from. And again, I don't know if these are local folks or national syndicated folks. We will find out together as we go. We're going to start with the Courier-Journal out of Louisville, Kentucky on Saturday morning, August 9th, 1986. Transformers the Movie Review, 2 stars by David Inman, staff critic. When I was a kid, we didn't have Transformers, which are toys that change from cars or trucks into robots. We had Crashmobiles. They were the perfect toys for little boys. The Crashmobile, bless its heart, was a plastic car made specifically to run into a wall, accompanied by an appropriate sound effect from your mouth, like crash with 7 S's and 4 H's. Then pieces would fly everywhere. Then you'd put it back together and do it again. It was great. I bring this up now because, as far as I can tell, Transformers have the same principle behind them as Crashmobiles, which they don't make anymore, probably because it flunked so many auto collision tests. The only difference is we never had Crashmobile: the movie. But if we had, it couldn't have been much different from the Transformers the movie, which opened yesterday. True, Transformers talk, Crashmobiles didn't. Maybe no self-respecting Crashmobile would have mouthed some of the dumb, pretentious dialogue some of the Transformers get saddled with. Each Transformer can change into something different. Their leader, Ultra Magnus, voiced by a basso profundo Robert Stack. Holy smokes, is he one of the Eurythmians?
This is your war, not ours.
Bad news, Mag. He doesn't want to help us. He says their harmonies can keep the Decepticons at bay.
Is he certain all of his people would feel that way?
Anyone who doesn't can leave, just like Allegra.
Ultra Magnus turns into a semi-trailer. Hot Rod, voiced by Judd Nelson, turns into a souped-up car. There are others too, including a helicopter and a tank. They are the good guys fighting bad guy Galvatron, voiced by Leonard Nimoy, who's under the evil control of Unicron, voiced by Orson Welles, whose distinctive voice has been slowed down and played with to be the deepest of them all. Every single minute of the Transformers the movie is about the fighting between the good robots and the bad ones. There are never-ending fight scenes, which were roundly cheered by a packed house yesterday afternoon, and I have to admit, if I were between 4 and 12 years old again, I would have been cheering too, instead of wistfully wishing that kids still got their kicks out of running cars into walls. At Showcase Cineplex, rated PG for a couple of mild, unnecessary curse words, lots of bloodless fighting, but no more violent than what's on TV. And here's the other challenge that I will present to you, because this ultimately ends up being another backhanded compliment, because like I couldn't help but smile at this last passage saying like if you're between 4 and 12 years old, or if he was between 4 and 12 years old, he'd have been cheering too. Also mentioned it was a packed house, so that's fascinating in itself. But yeah, it's like, again, I was 7 years old when I saw this movie, and it was a pretty packed house at the Bay Theater in Ballard. So ironically enough, for as inane as the first half of the review is, talking about Crashmobiles or whatever the hell that is, ironically enough, that's just Swapticons. We continue at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, again, Saturday, August 9th, 1986. Headline, Transformers is one large battle, by Ron Westkind, Post-Gazette staff writer. Welcome to the world of MTV cartoons. High-tech graphics, pulsating music tracks, mindless, quick-cutting action. You find it all in Transformers the movie, which is the same as Transformers, the afternoon TV show, except for the fact that you have to pay to get in. On the other hand, this toy line masquerading as entertainment has emptied parents' pockets of a lot more than the cost of a movie ticket, so this really isn't anything new. Indeed, it is depressingly familiar, actually. MTV has one advantage over Transformers. Music videos look expensive. The animation in this genre of cartoon is about as smooth as Charles Bronson's face. Eat shit. Yet such creations actually represent the perfect marriage of style and technology. Transformers are robots that turn into cars and trucks and helicopters, and one suspects a chopped liver sandwich if the occasion arises. Considering that the story is as mechanical as its characters, why shouldn't the animation match too? Talk about heavy metal. There is no plot line to Transformers the movie. The entire film is one giant battle scene with a few moments of respite as punctuation. The Autobots, they're the good guys, are locked in unending mortal combat with the Decepticons. Boo, hiss. That's how it's written, parentheses, boo, hiss. That's not commentary for me. Their struggle appears to be a blood feud with roots as deep as those of the Civil War in Lebanon. Holy shit, timely. The two sides are at least as hard to tell apart. Oh my God, this is... Let me get this straight. So he's comparing the Civil War between the Autobots and the Decepticons to the fighting in Lebanon at the time, and saying that continuing that comparison to saying that both sides are equally indistinguishable. That is a take, my friend. Two sides that are at least as hard to tell apart. To make it worse, a third party, a megalomaniac machine named Unicron, wants to conquer both races. In a bit of perfect casting, the late Orson Welles provides the voice of Unicron, a large, round creature with an insatiable appetite. Other heavy hitters such as Leonard Nimoy, Robert Stack, and Judd Nelson lend their voices to the film. Typically, the only bit of humor comes from Eric Idle of Monty Python, who vocally portrays a character who speaks entirely in TV jargon. Otherwise, Transformers contains such immortal lines of dialogue as, "I've got better things to do tonight than die," and "Do not grieve, soon I will be one with the Matrix." That dude makes a joke. One of those quotes has already been an episode of 40 for 40, and you know the other one is going to be as well. But the pictures are the thing. Like the Transformers themselves, the faster and more often they change, the better to keep the attention of the tykes in the audience. Adults may decide there are better things for their children to watch, however. In its own way, Transformers glorifies combat for its own sake and destruction of those not from one's own tribe with as much certainty as a film like Rambo. It may be cartoon violence, but it's a far cry from what that term used to mean, which was Bugs Bunny clobbering Elmer Fudd over the head with an oversized carrot. Transformers the movie is rated PG for violence and a few oaths that don't belong in a children's movie. And man, that phrasing there, referring to swears as oaths, that takes me all the way back to the Brian Daley Han Solo stories, like, Han Solo and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and Han Solo's Revenge and Han Solo at Star's End and whatever. But like there were several lines that I'd never understood when I was a kid. I would read these books and it would be like, and Han Solo said an oath. And I'm like, what does that mean? Turns out he's swearing. So an oath is like an old-timey way of describing swearing, which is crazy. I never thought I would come back to that phrasing ever again. Well, let's keep it going and let's continue. It's still Saturday morning. This is the Ottawa Citizen from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Headline, film about Transformers carries on successful creation by Richard Martin, Citizen correspondent. Once upon a time in a land called Japan, the Hasbro Toy Company discovered Transformers, a wonderful toy made of plastic that changes into different shapes with a few clever twists and turns. Adults found the toy very hard to manipulate, but 10-year-old boys love it, mastering its difficulties in no time and making grown-ups feel like klutzes. The toys also help children develop their hand-eye coordination and their spatial reasoning skills. But Hasbro kept quiet about this, believing no self-respecting 10-year-old boy would bug his parents half to death to buy him an educational toy. Good take. The Transformers were like Rubik's Cube, only more fun because the basic robot shape changed into cars and planes, cassettes and pistols, dinosaurs and monsters. Many of them bore a passing resemblance to Godzilla and other stars of Japanese monster movies in the 50s and 60s, but you'd have to be older than 10 to appreciate that. Seeing what a good thing Hasbro was onto, a company called Sunbow Productions made a deal for 2 TV miniseries and a Saturday morning cartoon starring the heroic Autobots and the evil Decepticons and featuring non-stop action and mechanical violence. The show has topped the ratings every week since its debut in 1985, thus setting the stage for The Transformers, the movie. It's everything you'd expect from a Saturday morning cartoon, blown up to feature length and designed to sell more toys to more kids. All the familiar characters are here. Optimus Prime, Ultra Magnus, voiced by Robert Stack, the evil Megatron, who transforms into the evil Galvatron, Leonard Nimoy, spoilers, and Hot Rod, who transforms into Rodimus Prime. Spoilers, dude! The new leader of the Autobots, played by Judd Nelson. Transformers don't really die, they just become new products. A new product here is Unicron, a monster planet that consumes everything in its path, just as the movie seems set to do. And again, your challenge in listening to these reviews is spot where they're wrong. We continue. San Antonio Express News in San Antonio, Texas. Headline, Transformers plot intricate, but youngsters should enjoy it. This by Bob Polonsky, Express News movie critic. Transformers transforms the summer into an animated wonderland for kids. The successful TV series is imaginative even if it is artificial. The characters are stereotypes in voice if not face, and the movie makes the most of all these things. As in the TV series, the good guys have vibrant, enthusiastic voices, the bad guys somber, grim, gloomy ones. The actors who turned the Transformers into vibrant characters include Eric Idle, Judd Nelson, Leonard Nimoy, Robert Stack, Lionel Stander, and the late Orson Welles in his last film assignment. Welles' voice adds a new dimension to the science fiction fantasy. The plot is complicated. In the 21st century, the Transformers are in conflict with the Autobots, who plan an invasion of the planet Cybertron. No, friend. Its residents, meanwhile, have invasion plans of their own. Megatron leads the Decepticons to attack Autobot City, but they are defeated and Autobot leadership is passed to Ultra Magnus. Spoilers! The voice is that of Ultra Magnus in his most glowing Untouchables tones. Meanwhile, the bodies of wounded Decepticons float across the galaxy. Unicron, voiced by Orson Welles, affects the lives of every Transformer, and the first move is to get the wounded bodies out of the galaxy. At this point, the voice of Leonard Nimoy is heard, representing the new body known as Galvatron. Spoilers! Unicron is the main villain, and his voice is the most powerful in the war between various Transformers. Although the action is violent for a cartoon feature, Transformers also has some comedy. Lionel Stander voices the character of the old Autobot Cup, and Judd Nelson is the voice of the smart aleck Autobot named Hot Rod. They arrive on the planet Junkion in time to save the remaining Autobots from destruction by Wreck-Gar, voiced by Eric Idle. It is all quite complex, but kids will probably be able to decipher it. The film's chief attraction is its animation. Done in a superficial style to emphasize the superficiality of the tale, the movie is as good as the TV series. It moves quickly and has easily identifiable good and bad guys. For that reason, kids should have a field day. That's an almost fair review. A couple more here to close us out. We zip over to Dayton, Ohio, and the Dayton Daily News. Headline, Toying with Kids' Money. This by Terry Lawson on Film. Film transforms into another overt sales ploy. My son, who is 6, doesn't play with his Transformers anymore, but that doesn't necessarily mean he'll want to skip the movie. If there's one thing I've learned about kids, and believe me, there's barely one, it's that when it comes to getting out of the house, they're fairly indiscriminate, and they'd have to be to sit through the Transformers the movie, which is another in what seems to be an unending string of long toy commercials passing themselves off as film. Occasionally, one of these will transcend the genre, but in the main, they're just shoddily animated, badly written opportunities to cash in on small children's naivete and parents' need to prove that they are caring people by taking their children to the movies. If they really care, they'd learn to say no, but that's another subject, and assuredly one on which you do not want to get me started. For those of you who do not have or indulge children, Transformers are plastic toys which can be quote-unquote transformed back and forth from robot-like figures to vehicles and weapons, i.e. trucks, boats, armored tanks, along with their competition called GoBots. They are currently quote-unquote the most popular toy concept in the world, at least according to the manufacturer's hype. Whatever, the Transformers and GoBots are a cottage industry, and they have spawned the usual television series, clothing lines, comic books, etc. If the makers of these toys had any sense of humor, they would have collaborated on a Transformers versus the GoBots picture, but growth industries do not often laugh at themselves, so the Transformers follow the GoBots into the feature film business, but to compensate, they've spent more dough on the debut. They've hired such celebrities as Judd Nelson and Robert Stack, and even the late Orson Welles, in what is billed as his quote-unquote last screen role, to provide voices for the characters, and they've used more elaborate computer animation techniques that were hauled out from their competitor's movie. As you might imagine, it hardly matters. It's still little more than an 80-odd minutes of explosion of clipped, often incomprehensible dialogue patched together by the usual save-the-world plot, and about the best thing that can be said for the animation is that the characters at least have an excuse for moving so mechanically. I will not pretend that I followed the story, but according to the synopsis so kindly provided to me, it is set in the year 2005, and the Transformers are still engaged in their decades-old conflict. The good guys, called Autobots, are planning an invasion of their home planet Cybertron to liberate it from the bad guys called Decepticons. Actually, that is kind of true now that I think about it. I rescind my outrage at that previous review. But before they can attack, the Decepticons attack Autobot City, the Autobots' outpost on Earth. The Autobots ward them off for a while, but while the battles rage, all the Transformers are distracted from an even more ominous threat, a sort of cosmic force in the shape of a planet called Unicron. This is played by Orson Welles, who even in death gets no release from Fat Man jokes. All of this is an excuse for wall-to-wall transforming and fighting, which the filmmakers euphemistically refer to as quote-unquote action. In the same way, such war toys as G.I. Joe are always called quote-unquote action figures. Anyone who is not familiar with all the Transformers and their place in the universe will find it impossible to follow, which bothers the filmmakers not a whit as long as you have paid your money. Aside from the voices, which the children will hardly recognize anyway, there's nothing whatsoever to distinguish this from average Saturday morning fare. But we can be fairly certain the corporate types responsible for this business have taken the opportunity to introduce a new character or two, which undoubtedly are arriving on shelves of Children's Palace even as we speak. And I'm personally past being offended by stuff like this, although I remain vaguely resentful. Actually, nothing in the movie maddened me as much as a quote in the press material in which the producers claimed to have taken points to ensure that the film had, quote-unquote, the polish of the Disney classics of the past. This, of course, is an unthinkable conceit. There's more imagination in the background washes for The Great Mouse Detective than in the whole of this merchandising scheme. And the fact that such films as this flourish while The Black Cauldron and The Great Mouse Detective don't is totally beyond my comprehension. But at least the Transformers craze is more or less over, although I'm currently living with constant dread of knowing that in a year or so I'm going to be forced to sit through a feature film based on the exploits of the Garbage Pail Kids. Maybe they can get Dean Martin to do the voice of Smashed Sam. The Transformers the movie is rated PG for violence. Oh man, what year did the Garbage Pail Kids movie come out? I don't think that was until 1988 maybe? And did Flint Dille have something to do with that movie? Oh man, I need to research that for another episode. I can't deal with that today, but I think this guy predicted the future. Last one for today. We go to Boston, Massachusetts, and the Great Boston Globe. Headline, Transformers, Junk Food for Little Minds by Robert Garrett, special to the Globe. Parents concerned that TV cartoons will turn their kids' brains into mush should be forewarned about Transformers the movie. This animated feature-length film is based on the TV half-hour cartoon shows of the same name, inspired in turn by the line of toys whose popularity has proved epidemic among kids. The movie is junk food for little minds. Armies of robots, good and evil, battle in a galactic setting. The film's robots, like the toys, can transform into a variety of shapes. They become outer space dinosaurs or laser cannons or locomotives, and they battle one another by firing lasers or smashing into one another. The action is paced to hook the short attention spans of small fry. Some new image flickers onto the screen about every 2.5 seconds, and since there's no plot to speak of, it wouldn't really matter if you came in the middle or the end. The soundtrack is rock music. Rude. Leonard Nimoy, Robert Stack, and the late Orson Welles provided some of the voices. It's odd to think that Welles ended his career as the voice of Unicron in a trash cartoon. End of review. Jesus. And as if that isn't bad enough on the critical reception side, let's take a look at the box office for week 2 of the Transformers the movie. I promise you I will only do this for one more week because the Transformers the movie is going to very swiftly disappear from movie theaters. This again from thenumbers.com. This is the box office ending August 15th, 1986. As we remember, Transformers the movie opened at number 14 at the box office. It has dropped 4 spots. It is now number 18, scoring $925 million, a 48% drop still on 990 screens. So it's still on the same number of screens and has made $3.7 million on a $5 million budget or a $6 million budget. Either way, I think by the time it ends its run, it's at around 5. There has been some shifting and there's some new movies. My beloved Jason Lives is out of the top 10 and is at number 11 with a 54% drop, still bringing in $1.633 million over the weekend for an overall total of 16.4. At the box office, the top 10, Heartburn, which is a Jack Nicholson comedy that I haven't seen. That's still holding in. Number 9 is One Crazy Summer, that opened the same day as Transformers the movie. Number 8 is a new movie at the box office, Manhunter. And I was not prepared for this because I just went to go see a 40th anniversary 4K restoration of Michael Mann's Manhunter. I'm sorry. The name of the exhibition is Michael Mann's Manhunter: The Final Cut. I went to go see that with my buddy Kevin, had a blast at it. And one of the things that Kevin observed, he's a Michael Mann fan. He loves Manhunter. He's a student of the movie more so than I was. But one of the things that he noticed when we watched the movie was that it didn't have the familiar DEG logo with the lion. And I froze because I forgot about that. I've only seen Manhunter a couple times. And after we got out, we go to the bar. And I was like, you know what other movie was put out by De Laurentiis Entertainment Group, right? And he starts naming off other movies. I'm like, no. The movie that I like. He's like, no shit, really? Yes. So it's fascinating. And Manhunter would end up being a huge box office bomb for DEG as well. But it's fascinating that there is that shared history. This may be the last time we see Manhunter in the top 10, but it's funny that Transformers the movie and Manhunter kind of two of a kind, actually. Anyway, that's number 8 at the box office, bringing in $2.2 million on 779 screens. Number 7 is Ruthless People. Number 6 is Top Gun, so it's dropped, but still hanging in there. Number 5, Nothing in Common. Number 4, The Karate Kid Part 2. Number 3, the number 1 movie from last week, Aliens, in 31 days of release, still bringing in $4.3 million for a total of $55 million. But the box office was dominated by 2 newcomers, and the 2 movies couldn't be more different. Number 2 was Armed and Dangerous, a Rodney Dangerfield comedy that brought in $4.3 million on 1,500 screens. But number 1, David Cronenberg's The Fly, starring Jeff Goldblum, $7 million on 1,100 screens, fewer screens than Armed and Dangerous. So there is your box office, and that's where Transformers the movie sets. And I think, like I said, by next week, I think it is off the charts entirely. But I will bring that up when we get there. 2026 marks the 40th anniversary of the Transformers the movie, and to celebrate that major milestone, I will be counting down my favorite, most iconic moments of the movie that has been such a huge influence on my life and the content I continue to create today. And cue the Bon Jovi, my friends, because we have reached the halfway mark of this podcast. That was episode 21, Moment 20, Gone Fishin'. I'd like to thank you so much for listening and for making me a part of your day and supporting this project. And if you'd like to hear more from me, check out the Mike Seibert Radio podcast right here on this feed. And for even more Transformers fun, check out our other show, Two Mikes, Too Furious, where Michael Andrews and I reviewed Transformers Animated one episode at a time. Please like, share, rate, review the show, and let me know what you think of this episode. My name is Mike Seibert. This has been 40 for 40, Transformers the Movie, and until next time, till all are one, make good choices. 40 for 40, Transformers the Movie is a production of Mike Seibert Radio and is recorded in Seattle, Washington. Cited works include scripts written by Ron Friedman and story consultant Flint Dilley, sourced from the Sunbow Marvel Archive. Storyboards by various artists, trailers, and other audio sourced from tfraw.com. More information can be found at tfwiki.net. Follow me on social media at Mike Seibert Radio on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky, and write into the mailbag, MikeSeibertRadio@gmail.com.